Politics and shooting. Why as a shooter should you be concerned about politics when you're just wanting to have a few shots this weekend and get back to work on Monday? The answer is because politics makes a difference whether we can go hunting or target shooting on the weekend. Politics can also affect whether we get to keep our favourite rifles, shotguns or pistols, or because some bureaucrat who knows nothing about what we do thinks we shouldn't have them. Politics can restrict us, but can also make it possible for us to have more opportunities in the future. Whether we end up with more guns, more hunting opportunities or less, depends on whether we ignore politics or take advantage of it. Politics is obviously important to what we do, so we've prepared 6 parts of this video which we hope will help shooters better understand what our political problems are and what they can do about it. Now some of you will already know this stuff, but we wanted to write this series for every shooter, including those who may have never had an interest in politics in the past or want to know what they can do about it. Unlike taxation and aviation, gun laws are almost entirely a state responsibility. Now you may already know this, but let's start from the beginning. If a state or territory government has a majority in Parliament, then it can pass laws, good or bad, with ease. If it does not have a majority, then it may need to negotiate with the opposition or other political parties. Governments nominate who their ministers will be and what portfolios they manage. In most cases, gun laws are the responsibility of the state or territory police minister and implemented by the local police force. As you'll see later on, we're concerned that some of our state ministers have handed control of our gun laws over to our police forces who are not accountable to you, me, or the respective state or territory parliament. This affects the quality of the policy environment, which causes us to have more gun laws that we don't need and do nothing for public safety or going after criminals, and it's our job to fix that. The major political parties are not there to help you or me. They are businesses. They may be concerned with some issues, but the currency they deal in is votes. If there are more votes in bringing in more gun laws than fixing the ones we have, then that's what happens, because getting elected is what matters to them. Your views on whether the shooting sports are safe or what the right outcome should be is simply not important to them. Not unless we can convert your views into votes. It means the only way shooters can influence gun laws is if we engage with the political parties at a political level and shift votes around. Doing this well requires the right level of experience, which is what the National Shooting Council has and why it was formed in the first place. When politicians say they're going to stand up for law-abiding shooters or they're going to go after criminals, they rarely, if ever, mean it. What they're really saying is they don't want to make any commitments but want you to vote for them anyway. If they hold a firearms licence, then that's great, but the risk is that many of them will simply toe the party line on gun laws when it matters, as we saw during the years of the Howard government in the 1990s. For many politicians, the risk in standing up on gun laws is losing pre-selection to keep their seat at the next election, which is career-ending, and it's not a risk they want to take. That isn't true of all politicians though. Quite a few are shooters, but finding out who will stand up for us when it matters and get results, they're difficult to find. However, they are the ones that we need to support, and it's our job to find them for you. You might laugh at the question of what bureaucrats do, but the truth is some provide regulatory functions such as licensing, while others provide policy advice, which means they become the gatekeepers for our gun laws. The letters you receive from ministers are usually prepared by those bureaucrats, which is why their role is more important than you might think. Career public servants are there for good, while ministers and their advisors come and go, which is why they can sometimes be more important to us than the people we elect, even though they are relatively invisible to the public. Bureaucrats provide advice to ministers, sometimes under time pressure, which means they may or may not consult the people that they should be speaking with. And that affects the quality of the advice that they can provide. Many bureaucrats do not come from the industries that they advise on, which means the advice that they can provide is sometimes incomplete, and they may not realise it, or worse still, they might be biased, in which case the information they provide will be wrong. Some bureaucrats are shooters, which means they're able to provide the right advice on gun laws. However, the majority of bureaucrats are not. The result is that the public service generally does not have the qualifications and experience it needs to look after shooters' interests. The good news is that the NSC includes people who come from a government policy background and have extensive knowledge of how governments work. They know how to make the system work to our advantage and help ministers know when they are and are not receiving the advice they need, because no minister wants to be making decisions based on incomplete or biased information. We suffer from a generation of politicians and bureaucrats who have never had any involvement in firearms and believe that gun ownership is a bad thing. The problem is made worse when they don't ask the right questions or realise that the information they have is wrong. Bad information can only lead to bad policy, which means bad laws. It also leads to a lack of public investment in what we do. This can be in the form of building new ranges and helping educate the broader community on the benefits that shooters bring to the community and the economy. Australia needs shooters, but it's doing a bad job of showing it. There are quite a few, which we've seen on a fairly regular basis over the past 20, 30 or even 40 years. They include the loss of sporting style semi-autos, lack of control over reclassification of firearms, including on appearance, which is simply how a gun looks, anti-shooting activists and politicians who have no qualifications or experience in firearms who get headlines on the matter, a policy environment that needs real improvement, which includes consultation and better decision-making processes, and inefficient registration and registries supported by ministers who don't consult their stakeholders. So what are the consequences of us not taking action? Unaddressed, there is a significant risk that it'll become harder and more expensive for us to stay in the shooting sports over time. It'll become harder for people to get involved in shooting, which includes your kids. Unfortunately, we're facing these risks because previous efforts to stem the tide have not worked as well as we need them to. That's why we need this council to become effective, and quickly. We're not saying these things will happen, but the history of our gun laws over the past 30 or so years has proven that we're on a slippery slope. So some of the future risks that are not that hard to imagine could come true are higher registration and licensing fees, popular guns move to more restrictive categories as we saw with our lever-action shotguns, fewer places to go hunting or maybe the loss of deer and duck hunting, the closure of gun shops and loss of gun shows, being able to use scopes on hunting rifles, and more negative coverage in the media of you just because you happen to be a shooter. There are more than 1 million shooters in Australia who care about the future of our sport. We all have busy lives and would really hope that somebody else could take care of the problems for us because, well, we're busy. But you and I know it can't happen that way if we're waiting for somebody else to do all the work. So that's exactly why we need you to act, and now. Not tonight, not tomorrow, but now. First, hop on our email list and follow us on Facebook. That way we can keep you informed of what's happening in politics that affects what you do and what you can do about it. You can also support our work by donating at paypal.me/national shooting. Second, make an appointment to see your local Member of Parliament. It will take just 15 minutes of your time to do, but it's the most important thing you can do for the shooting sports. When you go, don't cop the "we support law-abiding shooters" stuff, because they're fobbing you off. If that's all they're going to say, then be polite, but stop them there, and suggest they visit the local shooting range, or ask local shooters who you are confident know about our problems, how they think our gun laws can be more shooter-friendly. Finally, tell your local MP that the National Shooting Council is able to help them, and all they have to do is ask. And let them know why shooting is important to you and why shooters are good people who deserve to be treated that way.